I wanted to begin this interview by, of course, saying thank you so much, Ximena, for joining me today on Aaron's Opinion. Um, so, my first question, as I love to ask every guest from around the world, is this: you can take the conversation in any direction, talking about whatever you want. But of course, I want to know, who is Ximena Matos?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here.
My pleasure.
Um, as stated before, my name is Ximena Matos. I live in La Paz, Bolivia. I am a musician currently studying music and sound engineering.
Mm.
Um, and yeah, right now I'm just pursuing my studies and yeah, basically after that.
Okay. Well, I have a lot more questions. Okay.
Sure.
So, so
Go
you,
ahead.
as I was saying before I pushed record, and as I was um, mentioning to you over on Messenger before we came into the studio today, as you know, we've spoken with our great friend in the community, Blind with a Vision, the creator from Mexico, now living in the States. Anyway, I've spoken to her, and she was telling me how in your region of the world, down there in Latin America, blind people really are not very aware of podcasts and podcasting like this and these types of podcasts where people can come and share their opinions about blindness and that type of thing. There's not a whole lot of these types of shows down there in your region. So one thing that really stands out to me, just it's for me, it's just a big slap in the face to me, is that Jimena, your English skills are like really good. So you're speaking like an American. What's that about, by the way?
Uh, yeah. Well, to start off, I have been a couple of years in the US. Haven't been too long, but I have been there. I've been practicing English. And besides that, I am very much into languages. So I guess
Good.
that helps too. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Me too. Me too. I love being able to speak French. Je peux parler le français, and I
Ah, très
love.
bien.
Oh, there you go. There you go. So I love being able to speak other languages. I think that's so good. I think that's really important. The other thing, a little bit more about my background, and I forget, if I told you or not, but I have glaucoma. I also have a congenital heart defect, and I'm 30 years old, by the way. So, how did you become blind? Were you born blind, or did you become blind later on?
Oh, it's kind of a tricky story here.
Well, let's get into the tricky. Let's try to trick me. Let's get into it.
Well, I was born premature, so I had retinopathy of prematurity. I
Okay.
was born like 3 months early. Actually four. But well, I was in the incubator because they put me there once I was born. A nurse forgot to like put a protector over my eyes so to like the light won't damage them from the incubator. So therefore, basically half of the damage was done through that. My parents actually never knew I was blind until I was 6 months. Because I wouldn't like respond to like visual cues or wouldn't
Mm-hmm.
like look at people directly. Um, so I would just like look into space. They took me to an ophthalmologist, like the eye doctor, um, to get that checked out, and they were like, "No, you just have to get her brighter stuff, like colorful stuff that will attract the attention." And they knew that I was blind, so like they were just trying to hide it. So yeah. Uh, Once they found out that I was blind and due to this person as well, they did something in court. Uh, but she escaped to Chile and no one ever like saw her after that.
I want to ask you more about that. I think I know what happened. So I want you to talk about it if you want. By the way, you do not need to talk about it if you aren't comfortable with it. But if you are, it would be good to repeat it again because this is something that happens very, very, very frequently outside of the United States in developing countries all over the world. This is a big problem. So I think I know what happened, but what person are you referring to? And I kind of
She
I'm
was a
trying to lead
nurse.
you here. I kind of know what
It's
happened, but I'm
okay. No worries. I am fine talking about the topic, but she was a nurse, the person that forgot to protect, like, put the protector over
right.
my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, yeah, she was the person,
So
and she escaped the
because
chili. So, yeah.
because of that, she was. It sounds to me that there was some sort of hearing, and she would have been perhaps prosecuted. Maybe she would have been prosecuted for being negligent in her work,
Exactly. I
perhaps.
couldn't find the word actually for
Okay,
it,
so
but yes,
this is called it's called medical
medical
malpractice.
negligence.
Medical malpractice.
Uh-huh.
This is a big. I mean, Jimena, this is a big problem in your region. This is a big problem all over the world. This is a very, very common problem that a lot of children are born, sighted or something like that, and then there's a small, one small mistake like that, and then the baby is blind. So I'm sorry to hear that. That doesn't surprise. I mean, I'm sorry to hear it, and it also like I'm not remotely surprised. By the way, nothing personal, but it's Bolivia. I wouldn't. I mean, there's a part of me that would expect that all the doctors and nurses are perfect, but I studied international affairs. I've traveled a lot over the world. Truth is, there's this is a very, very common problem. Yeah. Okay. So, and what is and since you said that you're from La Paz, um, for one thing, what is it like there in La Paz? And overall, what is the, philosophy when it comes to being blind in Bolivia? How is the schooling? How's the society? How does all of that work?
Well, um, for starters, schools rarely accept blind people. You have
Mm-hmm.
to like go to the school interview when like you're trying to uh enroll into a school. I remember the first time I was trying to enroll to a school once I left the States, came back here to Bolivia. I was about 11.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and my mom beforehand, she actually started paying the school for me and my youngest sibling to go. So like we had like our spots like designated at the school. But once they saw me, they were like, "Oh, now we don't have a spot for this person. We only have spots for first graders," which my sibling was in that group at the time. So there we had to like go to other schools to try to find another spot or something. But like I had like similar responses or worse responses, like, we don't have spots for sick children.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
So there you
That's
go.
okay. Now, you said something really, really important. We don't have spots for sick children. That's really important. So in Bolivia, do they still think blindness is a sickness?
In some parts, yes. It now kind of depends on the group of people, but yeah, there are some individuals who think that is a sickness or something. And they just think that the person is more delicate, to be precise, actually. Because I even had people telling me, how are we going to teach you what we cannot keep our eyes on you the whole time, who's going to help you down the stairs and stuff like that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, there you go.
Right, right. So the answer here is that it's a problem. If blindness is viewed as a problem in Bolivia, is the answer.
Mhm.
So it would be hard. Right, right. How is your sibling also blind? Did your sibling also have vision issues as a infant?
No, she does, however, have epilepsy. So
Okay,
yeah.
okay, all right. That's still important and still very interesting. So obviously, at some point along the way, your parents knew that you needed to be educated because you wouldn't be studying in a university and you wouldn't be speaking English so beautifully if you hadn't completed schooling to some extent. So what happened after they told you, no, we don't want you, you can't go to school here? Then what happened?
It took months of technically battling because I think I couldn't find a school for me. I went through various schools actually. The first school I went to was quite expensive, but they accepted me, but it was quite expensive. I had to get out of there because every year, at least over here, I don't know how it works in other parts of the world, but like some stuff increase, including school registration, like the school monthly pays and stuff. So each year, like a certain school or certain schools will elevate that. And that's what happened to the school where I was attending. I had to change to another school. I had to like battle it again to find that one. I was at a Christian school, private Christian school. Um, but then it resulted in 4 years later, it resulted in being illegal. Like the school wasn't registered in the Ministry of Education, so it wasn't enrolled in that. So
Huh.
basically,
I've
it was
never
like a
heard.
problem.
I've never. Yeah, that sounds like that would be. I think it would be a problem if you're a school that's
Yeah.
not a school. Yes, that would be a problem. We hear interesting things on the podcast. That's a weird one. That's a weird thing.
Yeah.
So then, basically, does the Bolivian Ministry of Education nowadays? Do you get the sense that they pay attention to the schools in the country, or not so much?
I feel like they don't because like even like you can see it physically in school buildings that they don't even pay attention because some of them are neglected, half destroyed, stuff like that. So you can even see it physically, internally. So like sometimes
Okay,
they don't
okay.
care and
So
stuff.
so if you already said it's half destroyed, then that shows me that they were neglectful and that they didn't care. Okay.
Exactly.
If it's halfway destroyed, it means they didn't care. At least they didn't care 50%. Okay.
Oh God.
Gosh. Well, again, I'm not surprised. I mean, and by the way, were these schools all like in the capital, in the main city there, La Paz, or were they like all over the country that you
Oh
were
no,
going
it
to?
was like in the capital, and I actually after like battling with that legal stuff from that school, I
Mm-hmm.
got I got to graduate from another school, uh, and I actually graduated with honors from that one,
Mm-hmm.
and I became like the first blind person to ever graduate like with honors from a normal school, as they call it
From
in
a
Bolivia,
mainstream education.
mainstream. Yes,
Wow, wow. So do you think you're one of the first, if not the first, blind person to be mainstreamed in Bolivia today?
I feel like it because most blind people or they don't receive education, they drop out, or some just end up studying out of the country or in different parts of the country actually because there is actually one place in the country where it's a bit more developed.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels like another country actually. But yeah, and or they study in the blind institution, which luckily I didn't get to study. But yeah, there's a blind institution here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. In other words, there's a institution or a school for the blind.
Hmm.
And you say here, luckily, you didn't have to go there. So,
Yes,
what do you know about that place?
I've been there, but I haven't studied there. I've been there for after school, like homework help
Mm-hmm.
and technology stuff.
Right.
Um, but they treat blind people as if they had multiple disability. And I know that I'm aware that there are other people with multiple disabilities within the institution, but doesn't mean that all of them are the same. I remember this one time I was doing my after school stuff as I usually did. My mom dropped me off, but decided to stay a little longer this time. and saw how teachers were putting glue on children's hands to keep them occupied. They were like, just take the glue off. And they were just getting distracted with something else. Well, like children from like must have been like 10 and up were trying to like peel glue off their own hands. So yeah, it was interesting. And yeah, they're also neglected by the government because the place doesn't have its own spot. They just look like nomads because they moved from spot to spot, building to building. It doesn't have their own spot, their own piece of land to be on.
Hmm. Hmm. Yes, this is all too familiar to me. In my case, I was mainstreamed, but in my case, also my parents had to fight and in the end had to go to due process of law to get me educated too, even in the States. So this is a very common problem and a very serious problem in the blindness community, for sure. Yes, yes. So, and as far as the city of La Paz goes, what can you tell us about, the city today of La Paz, the accessibility, how it's like to travel around the city of La Paz? What can you tell us?
First of all, if someone ever comes to La Paz, you must know it's the highest city in Bolivia, 12,000 feet above sea level to be exact. Second, it's full of hills. You have a bunch of like, well, hills around. The land is never flat. It's always hilly. Accessible wise, they're trying to get there, but then society kind of blocks it because I have to be honest and quite frank. People in Bolivia are kind of narrow-minded and stuck there. If you give them something new, uh, they rarely accept it or they just don't want to. There are some streets that do have uh what like buff paint on them, like straight line buff paint, so you can like know where you're going, sort of thing. Like they have
Sort of
these
like
little
maybe is it like
guidelines.
like tactile so that when you're tapping with your
Yes,
cane you can feel the bumps?
correct.
Ah, interesting.
Some of them
Interesting.
have it, especially like in the center of the city. You don't have them anywhere else. But it's like in the center, although it would be nice if maybe they had it somewhere else, but they don't. Next off, you have like the traffic lights, stop lights that have a sound in them, like a beeping sound. But they're also again in the center. They're not nowhere else, just in the center of the city. And they even had to put the volume down of those because we have people selling a bunch of different products on the streets. So like they were like, oh, we get headaches from those. You should turn down the volume. So sometimes you can find it a bit softer in some areas. And as I mentioned before, there are people selling stuff on the streets. So that's a bit of a problem, with a little bit of a predicament because I walk around a lot and you have people on the street, on the sidewalks, selling stuff, like sitting on the sidewalks and stuff like that. It's a bit complicated to like travel around sometimes because of them.
Right, right. So it would be kind of hard to walk with your cane if people are sitting with their legs out or their feet dangling over maybe a curb or a chair or something like that. It would be kind of hard to walk. Yeah.
You have like people selling vegetables. I remember multiple times accidentally knocking stuff over, and you would get the occasional yelling at you because you knocked them over. Then you have to fight with them because you're blind, you didn't see them. So it's something. People don't want to use the markets to sell their stuff. They just want to sell wherever they can. So you find a lot of people just
Hmm.
with stuff around.
It's very interesting. So you're saying that there in Bolivia, people are allowed to just set up their cart wherever they want to sell their vegetables. It doesn't have to be in a designated marketplace area.
Uh-huh. Exactly.
Yeah, yeah, that is a little unusual. Usually, most countries have a designated area for that. For that very reason, they want.
There are actually
Yeah.
designated areas, but people just don't want to use them. You have like the farmers markets,
Hmm.
the open. markets, stuff like that. You have
Open air market probably. Yeah.
correct. Yes,
Yeah, I
and they
see.
don't want to use them sometimes.
Why not? If you're that's just weird. If you're a merchant, you would go to the market to sell your goods. Why not?
They have the philosophy of like, if people are walking by, they'll see this and they're gonna want it, so they'll buy it. So yeah, they're like, let's just spread out everywhere, and that way people don't have to, say, oh, let's go to this place. It's far away, but let's go anyway. I don't know. I guess they're just, I don't know why they do that, but yeah.
That is very odd indeed. Very odd indeed. Um, Another thing to touch on is so you said that you've been to the States a couple of times. So, what is your connection to the United States? I'm really interested to hear about that.
I was taken to the US when I was little, uh, because of me turning blind. My parents took me there to get eye surgeries.
And where I hope that I already know where you went for the surgery, but where did you go for the surgery?
I was in California, South California.
Good, good.
I
Mm-hmm.
was like getting my surgeries done at UCLA.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Very nice. Very nice. And how old were you, do you suppose, when that happened?
I was 2 years old. I was there until like I was about 10. So I did my elementary schooling there.
Right. So so you were mostly educated in the United States.
Elementary wise, yes. But like I was at a place where it was like kind of more Spanish spoken.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's fine. But so then, I mean, just I'm kind of I'm a little confused. I'm a little confused about the timeline though, because then you said that you went to some schools in Bolivia and they said they didn't have space for sick children. So
Yes.
when like that? I think maybe you got the order. Like, can you clarify the order, the timeline a
Oh,
little bit?
sure. No, once I was 11, I actually started schooling in Bolivia.
Okay,
That's
okay,
why I mentioned when I was 11, I went to certain school, and
okay.
that's what they were saying.
Okay, so that was the order it happened. Okay, so
Yes,
first you went to the United States for surgery, and then because you were there, you went to school there, which is obviously the right choice. And then you stayed there until you were about 11, came back to Bolivia, and then they said, we don't have a space for sick children. Right. Okay.
correct. Exactly.
Got it. Okay. Hopefully that'll clarify that for the listener. Because you started from Bolivia and then we worked backwards. Okay, got it. So, then what can you tell me about your experience or some memories? I mean, I know it's kind of hard to remember because when you're a child, you're kind of all children are kind of in a in a diz, as we say. But what do you do? Are there any memories that kind of stand out to you of going to school in the States?
Well, actually, I found it pretty helpful, the experience I had in the US. I've learned quite a lot of stuff that I don't find here actually. I have to clarify something.
Sure.
Once I came to Bolivia, my mom and I
Once you
decided,
came, well, once you,
yeah,
well, let's clarify even further.
let's
Let's
came back to Bolivia.
there you go. There you go. Once you came back because you were born in Bolivia, so
Yes,
you couldn't come if you were already. We're shaking up the
correct.
past tense here. This is the past composé thing. We're getting all mixed up with the tenses. Okay. Once you came back to Bolivia from the United States. Okay, go
Correct.
ahead. Okay, go ahead. Yes.
Sure. My mom and I decided to create a association. There you go. I couldn't
Ah,
say it. Uh,
association.
called in Spanish it's Ojos del Alma. In English it would be Eyes of the Soul.
Ah.
To help like blind kids and teenagers like adapt to society, because like once I came back to my country, I've noticed that like it's obviously not the same in the US to Bolivia. Like blind kids didn't even know what a movie theater was. because
What
people
do you
wouldn't
mean
accept
blind
them in there.
children? What do you mean blind children in Bolivia didn't know
In
what a theater was?
Bolivia, yes, in Bolivia, they didn't know what they didn't know how to like socialize with other kids. They were
I mean,
mostly
that's pretty. I
isolated.
mean, that's pretty common even here in the states. But wouldn't they have a theater? I mean, wouldn't they have theaters in Bolivia? I mean,
They do. We do, but the thing is that uh they don't accept too much like blind people. Well, they didn't at the time.
so you're giving the impression that this Bolivia country is not very open. You're giving the impression it's a pretty. You're giving the listener and me the impression that Bolivian people are closed-minded.
Correct. And that's
Oh,
what I actually stated before that some
right.
people are a bit minded. Great, I can't
Yeah,
think.
yeah, yeah. It wouldn't. I mean, it wouldn't surprise. I mean, it's not acceptable, but it's also not surprising given the history
Mhm.
of Bolivia being a relatively isolated place. In Latin America. I'm not surprised by this. So, um, but let's go back to the United States and let's talk about your schooling in the United States because I'm really interested in that. So,
Uh yeah.
what can you? Oh, and the association part, we're supposed to put that at the end. See, so we come back, and then at the end we talk about the stuff at the end. Okay, see, so you're really making this a wonderful episode because we got to get the cards, we got to shuffle the deck and get the cards all in the right order here. Okay,
All right.
association. We'll come back to that. I'll say okay. There's an association. We'll put it at the end of the episode.
All
That's the
right.
end part. Okay, but when you were living in the States, what are some of the experiences that you remember? Some really big things that stood out to you?
First of all, like the schooling in general, how they would accommodate to your needs and show you how to do a lot of different tasks. Um and a lot of technology. For example, you guys have like braille displays and stuff. and
Mm-hmm.
it was interesting to see those. And I actually had the opportunity to use those.
Good,
So yeah,
good. And what years were you in the States? Just give us a time. And by the way, how old are you? So can you give us a time frame of what years you're talking
sure.
about here?
I am 22.
Okay. Yeah. So you're younger than my brother by 2 years. So you were born right around the turn of the millennium. Right? So you're a millennial. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
1999 I was born. Yes.
Let me guess. December 31st, right? 1999. Right?
No, May 10th.
Oh, okay. Because you say base. That's very interesting. Very 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 interesting. Anyway, though, okay, I see. Yeah. So I mean, Jimena, that was the '90s and the early 2000s was a time for tremendous technological growth. In the United States, as it comes to the accessible technology and assistive technology, so that was a huge boom. That was a major booming period in our country as far as the technology development goes. Yeah, yeah. Um, and that is fine. That is fine. That is fine. I'm 30 years old, so when I was growing up in the early 90s, they didn't have all this extra technology. But okay, so you noticed in the States, you noticed the technology, and what else did you notice, or what are some other experiences you had?
Um, what else? The accessibility on the streets, actually. A lot of stuff really actually stood up to me when I
Mm-hmm.
was living in the States. Excuse the sound in the background. It is currently hailing.
That is fine. That is fine.
But yeah. Um, how schools were accepting. A lot of the stuff that I have found challenges with basically here in Bolivia were currently diminished when I was in the States.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's what I could say.
I see. I see. Well, that's very good. Okay. Good. So you and are you still in touch with a lot of your American friends to this very day?
Yes, I am actually currently in touch with a lot of friends I had in the States.
Really good. Okay. So then you came back to Bolivia.
Mhm.
You graduated from that school. What? How old were you when you graduated from the school in Bolivia?
When I graduated
Hmm.
from like high school,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I was 18.
Okay. And then what happened? So then you graduate from Bolivian high school, and then what?
I entered university.
Mm-hmm.
I started studying music, Loyola at Loyola University here.
Okay. Very good. And there's a lot of majors that people can choose. So what really pulled you into music? Why did you want to join the music section?
I have always been immersed in the music since a young age. Since I was 4, actually, I would always get the classical toy piano.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, my dad got that for me. He got it after of a garage sale, and I would not stop playing with that thing. I was like 24 if I wanted to 7 with it. Um, so I got enrolled into like uh piano classes.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but then at the age of 8, I found a guitar in my dad's room.
Mm-hmm.
This is a classical guitar. I didn't know how to hold it, so I just found my ways to end up playing it.
Mm-hmm.
My first song was like it's a happy birthday song. But yeah, I found my ways to play the guitar. My
Right.
dad saw the interest for me in the guitar once I was 13 and I was enrolled in here in Bolivia in the Conservatory of Music.
Really? Really?
Yes.
So okay, so you were good enough to you achieved a level of proficiency to be admitted to the conservatory in Bolivia. So how does that work?
To enroll, you have to take a couple of tests, such as it's a sufficiency test. Like you have to do. They first want to know your ear level, like how trained is your ear, how well you can do with the instrument. You do that test in front of like you have to perform in front of judges. Um, and yeah, music theory wise, I had to learn that because I never knew music theory like Braille music. So yeah.
Okay, okay. So you're actually studying in a conservatory right now. So that's the type of university you're studying in. That's
No,
oh.
I was studying in Conservatory of Music Bolivia when I was 13 till
Mm-hmm.
I was 15.
So is that conservatory for like any age, or is it just like a performing arts school?
It's any age starting from 4 to up.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I
Mhm.
see. I see. Okay. Okay. So what were you able to accomplish from the conservatory, and how long did you study there?
I studied there for 4 years. I've been studying classical guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I have achieved like certain levels where I was in performing some concerts. I even was part of the classical guitar orchestra,
Mm-hmm.
and I traveled to Peru, which was nice.
Mm.
So yeah, I stopped studying there because I didn't qualify for a scholarship because I wasn't very good at music theory.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have enough money to pay off. So I just and besides I was quite busy with like schooling stuff because of how it was over here with school. It was like double the work. So it
Right.
was
Sure.
quite complicated doing the conservatory. I had to write all my music scores and stuff for all my lessons. I had to do my schoolwork, and it was a lot of schoolwork. They always ask a lot of you, so it
Good.
was kind of complicated. So I had
Good.
to leave the
My
conservatory.
opinion of that is I think that there's a right way to push a blind person and a wrong way to push someone. If they're pushy in a good way, in a kind way, and in a strong and supportive way, that's good. That can be good, and helpful later on in life.
Mhm.
But that's extremely good. So okay, so then you went to that school for a few years, and then what? And then where did you go?
After that, I entered the University Loyola of Bolivia
Mm-hmm.
once I graduated high school. Um, I started picking up the electric guitar, so mainly gone to that. I do love classical guitar, but I just feel like it's a bit more mechanical, so I decided to like free myself a little, grab the electric guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I started learning empirically with the knowledge I knew of guitar beforehand.
What
But
do we mean here by empirically?
I never had someone to teach me electric guitar. Uh, I started to learn on my own.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Interesting. Interesting. Now, what can you tell us about the university you're currently attending at this particular moment?
Um, I am the only blind student on campus, for starters. I
And what
there's
is
no
the attitude there at the university? Are you finding some support? Are most people relatively unaware? What is the general attitude or the feel that you have from that university?
I do have some support from a couple of professors. I feel lucky to have them, but
Mm-hmm.
there are some that just at first sight, I remember even this one particular case when I was in my first class with this person, and I have dark glasses on.
In
And
other words,
once,
you look like a blind person. You have a cane. You have the black glasses. You're a stereotypical looking blind person. In other words, right?
yeah, the thing was that I didn't have the cane on site. I just had the
Ah.
black glasses. So
See,
once the
no.
class
See,
fin
that's not going to cut it. You got to have the cane with the sunglasses.
the thing is that this person thought that I was drunk. And I was like, I didn't know you were blind.
That's not okay. That's not appropriate at all for them to say that. I completely understand. But then again, on the other side of the story, that's why I always use my cane when I'm in a public place, because the cane is the respectful way to tell sighted people that you're blind. So what they said is
Exactly.
not it's not acceptable to call a student drunk, um, unless of course a college student does come into class drunk, which to be fair that does happen. I mean
Yeah,
that I'm guarantee that happens. So that's not appropriate, but also it's not unreasonable for them to think that, given that you weren't showing them the cane. The cane is the real sign. It's a polite way of saying, "Hi, I'm blind," and that's the appropriate way of showing the other person. For me, I view the cane. It's more for sighted people than it is for me. Is how I view it. Mm-hmm.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't have the cane at site because we were just sitting in class taking notes
Mm-hmm.
and stuff, so she didn't get to see it. We were like 100 people in there. I was in the middle because I don't like sitting in the front. But yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and
Yeah.
then yeah, that's what happened. But like yeah, besides that, I have had support from other professors, the
Mm-hmm.
director himself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, some others like they didn't know how to approach. They didn't
Right.
know how to give me certain lessons, like how
Mm-hmm.
to like music theory wise.
Yeah,
So
that's
yeah,
tricky. That music theory, that would be very difficult. I can see, again, it's not acceptable. It's not okay for them to think you cannot do it. I'm not saying that, but it is. I can, at some level in the back of my mind, see where there would be some question. I mean, it's fair to ask that question in certain ways, So I do understand. There's some difficulty with the theory and the braille music. That is pretty complicated. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Good. Good.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. All right. So currently, well, like, what classes are you taking?
I'm taking among like music theory classes, orchestral ones, just because it's supposed to be taken because the director of the career is a violinist. He's more of a classical music type. So he's like more into that. So we have to take those harmony.
Mm-hmm.
Um then You also have like choir
Hmm.
and all that fun stuff. Yeah,
I
basically,
see.
yeah.
I see. So do you also like singing? Can you sing?
I don't like singing, but I sing because it's required of me to do that. I'm not too much of a vocalist, but then here I am in the choir.
I see. I see. That's very interesting. So after you graduate from this university, what is your dream and like what are your plans on what you want to do?
I want to grab my master's degree in Berkeley. I am actually planning to do my audition once I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, besides that, I want to do do a special project.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to go into too many details, but I want to
Sure.
help musicians of Bolivia
Mm-hmm.
to be more recognized out of the country. That's the goal of the project. Like, do a support for Bolivian musicians to be more out there, and besides, help young musicians to grab scholarships outside of the country.
I think that's really important. I think that's a really noble thing to want to do. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Definitely that is true. That is true. Um okay, well good, good. And you also touched on the fact that you're doing some content creation and you're a YouTuber, right?
Yes,
So
I
tell us about
am.
that.
I do some music. I actually have my own composition on my YouTube channel. I do have very few stuff, but I am preparing content.
Mm-hmm.
I also like upload more. So I have a little uploaded more stuff on TikTok as well. But yeah, I've done some stuff on YouTube. If you guys want to check that out, I will provide the link as well.
Right, right. Well, that's all very good. So, are you getting on YouTube? Are you getting an international audience?
I do have a couple of international people that have even commented on my composition video, actually.
Well, that's okay. If you get people to comment on a composition, then it's good. Then that's a really good sign. That is a really, really good sign.
Yes.
Um, because most of the YouTube videos do not get comments and things like that. So, are these people commenting from English speaking countries? What parts of the world are hearing your composition?
I have actually gotten comment from someone in India. I've gotten
Really
like
good.
two other comments from people from the US, and I have to thank people who have spread the video around. I have had even my friends spread it around. Uploaded a sample of the composition to TikTok, so I got views on that, and people saw the link on my bio and decided to
Mm-hmm.
go around my YouTube channel and check that out. So
Well,
yeah,
let's talk about it. So what's your channel called?
it's with my name. It's Ximena Matos.
Okay.
I do plan to change it to my stage name afterwards.
Wait,
But
well,
yeah,
let's figure that out. What's your stage name?
it's Zyme Strike. It's Xime Strike altogether.
Okay. I would go with I mean, if you want my opinion, I think for a channel, I think the name I think your name is very distinctive. I think that's a very memorable name. That's a very good name. Ximena Matos. That's a very
Not
strong
true.
sound. That's a strong name, you know. Sometimes you want to highlight your name, other times you want to highlight your show. In my case, it's on YouTube here. It's Aaron's Opinion TV, and the podcast is Aaron's Opinion. My name is Aaron Richmond, but I focus the opinion part because it's the name of the show, you know.
Hmm?
Yeah, I don't know. Have you thought about like getting into podcasting?
As speaking wise, not really, but I wouldn't like deny the chance to try it out. I
Right.
have, however, worked in like behind stuff and podcasts because I also work in sound editing.
So what
So
is so I think that after this recording, I will of course add you to my community, my private group on WhatsApp. And there are many people in the group that are fellow content creators from all over the world, all walks of life, like you, and they would really appreciate learning more about sound editing. If not, they would definitely appreciate perhaps even working with you in the future. So, what is sound editing? Let's talk about that.
It's basically what you do is um work with sound,
Mm-hmm.
edit, modulate, add effects maybe,
Mm-hmm.
depending on what you want to work for. Let's say podcast wise, I don't know, add the background music, edit out stuff if you don't want to add stuff. Um, add audios in between spaces, stuff like that. Music wise, I also work like that. Do the producing, mixing, editing.
So, what types of shows have you produced and mixed and edited?
I have worked on this podcast called Roy Royce. It's a Bolivian podcast, which is actually hosted by my friend.
Ah,
So yeah, it's a podcast that talks about different disabilities,
oh,
and there are also different topics involved, but yeah, mainly it's different disabilities.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Okay, well that sounds really important. I mean, so this is what I was talking about before. This is why it's so important for you to come to podcasts like this and get the word out there because there are not a whole lot of podcasts in your region. Um, I mean, as far as Bolivians go, I mean, do they like listening to podcasts? How would you describe I guess, the ear of the Bolivian? Are they people that really like to listen to things? What do you think?
Um, they do, but
Mm-hmm.
it just depends like their accessible site. Sometimes just people just grab radios and just listen to stuff on the radio. Some people don't bother to go on the internet and search for stuff like podcasts.
Right, because they might not know that these things exist. Right.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
That's why just like some of these podcasts, at least that what my friend does, he uploads them to Facebook as like live videos, audios, so people can look at them.
Right. Right. And there's a lot of ways of getting the word out. There's a lot of strategies from
Mm-hmm.
doing a couple different things: the YouTube, the Instagram, the Twitter, the podcast itself, then the sending it around WhatsApp. There's a lot of ways of getting the information to different groups of people. But over time, hopefully, these things build up. Um, and this person that runs this Bolivian podcast, are they blind or what is their disability?
Yes, he is uh low vision.
Low vision. Okay, good.
Yes.
Very good. Very good. Um, So really, in the end, after all is said and done, I mean, you want to start this organization that will help musicians in Bolivia. But what are some other goals that you have and things like that?
I want to become a better musician and start performing. I am even part of a band, so like I want to develop more, let's say, my guitar skills
Mm-hmm.
and become like a full-time musician as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, okay, okay. So all of that is really, really excellent. And besides, Peru and the States, what other countries have you been to around the world?
I've been to El Salvador,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, I've been to too many places.
Okay, okay. Well, goodness, goodness. Um, so we have about another 11 minutes left. These hours always fly by. I'm pretty sure that you have probably a lot of questions for me. So I would like to take some time for you to ask all of your questions that you have about Aaron Richmond and Aaron's opinion.
Sure. Like, how did the idea for this podcast start out? Because
Hmm.
I guess you've been interviewing more people than myself, and you said globally. So, yeah.
Well, I will tell you. I will tell you. For one, though, but before I tell you that, Have you ever interviewed? Alluded to the fact that you've interviewed people. Have you ever interviewed people?
Um, very few times,
Okay.
actually.
Okay. All right. All right. So, what I was doing is for the past 6.5 years, I have been teaching English as a second language online. And anytime I was not doing that, I was listening to podcasts from around the blindness community. I noticed, though, I made an observation, is that I feel and felt and still feel today that these podcasts around the community just are not really open to having guests from all countries and all walks of life, and that they really are not open to hearing other people's opinions, such as mine. So, what I figured out was that if I push record, I can share my opinion, and that apparently, since I've been doing this for a couple years now, apparently people really need and want to hear my opinions and I'm not saying that in a way to sound the slightest bit pompous, but what I mean is I really think that there are blind people in Bolivia and all over the world that need to learn from us as successful blind people. So I think that a show like this one and yours are needed in the ecosystem of content. And basically, what happened was I would go to different Facebook groups for blind people all over Facebook, and I would answer different questions that people had, and then I would say, and I don't do the show this way anymore, but I was doing a lot of solo shows before I got into the interviews. And then I would say, so, today so and so asked about this question or had this problem, and here's how I would solve it. And then I would basically create an audio file where I responded to the question. And then over time, it occurred to me that this is kind of becoming a podcast. So, over doing that over a period of time, I just built up a podcast to what it is and where it is today. I will promise you that I never make promises I cannot keep, but the promise I can keep and make to you, Ximena, is that if you really want to make it in music, content creation, or podcasting, it's going to be a very painfully slow process. Painfully slow. So that's how I got into this.
Yeah, I can comprehend that.
Well,
Nothing's easy though.
no, not even in the States. Even if you grew up your whole life in the States, there are still profound challenges. Absolutely. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And what else?
What else can I ask? Besides like the podcast, is there like any other interests you may have?
I love animals. I'm someone who had a guide dog. I had two. So I love pets. I love everything about animals. So I had two Labrador retrievers, both of which had wonderful lives and they lived out their days and passed away. But I had a guide dog, and I had just a regular dog that wasn't just a pet dog. So I'm a huge animal person. My latest thing is I've been fostering cats. I live in a part of the country where there's a lot of cats that need homes and need support. So I provide fostering for them until they're able to find forever homes. And there's a cat cafe in my community. Do you have cat cafes there in Bolivia?
Oh, we have a dog restaurant.
What's a dog restaurant?
It's a place where you can take your dog.
Oh,
It's a
okay.
restaurant because like
Phew.
the
Okay.
you cannot take that. It's
Okay.
not a place where you can eat dogs.
Okay, that's what. As I was afraid of that. Okay, okay, good, good, good. I see. That's interesting. That's interesting. I'm sure though that in Bolivia there are too many cats. I'm sure that you can have a cat really anywhere.
Actually, there's cats everywhere. They actually reproduce quite fast, I guess. So like you have cats everywhere on the rooftops,
Right.
everywhere.
And does anyone in Bolivia do anything to care for them, or do they just sort of become part of the environment?
And I become part of it. Some actually do. Uh, some people do actually bother to rescue them, make them their pets, but some
Mm-hmm.
just don't care about them, and some just want to poison them even. So
Yeah, it's a big problem around here too. Yeah. Yeah, I just got done fostering a kitten where her mother died, but it was some person's trailer, and they told the organization, they said, if you don't come rescue these cats, I'm going to kill them. So, yeah, people are not always kind about that. But then again, people are not always kind to blind people, so that kind of, that kind of makes sense, I guess, in a very odd and strange and sick way. But well, another thing that you wanted to talk about, as I said, we put these things towards the ends of episodes. So nowadays, now you've started a whole association in Bolivia, right? Tell us about that.
Ojos Alarma was an association. It died because of multiple reasons. It was created by me and my mom to, uh, teach blind kids and teenagers to do many different stuff, to establish them in society, you know, to teach them a whole new level of stuff. So it died because some parents kind of didn't like the idea
And why not?
because they were afraid that their kids could get hurt.
Okay. That's not helpful. I'm sorry to hear that, but I have a very strong suspicion that with your YouTube and everything that you're doing, coming to this show, coming to other shows, hopefully in the future, I think that you'll be able to still continue to be very, very helpful to people around the community for sure, right? So, yeah, I think this is very common for a lot of organizations don't have the resource or the funding or just the support in general. So all all really very understandable, and you've really done. I got to tell you, you've really done an incredible episode, and I cannot thank you enough. So we just have about on the hour here. I have about 3.5 minutes. So let me just see something here. So now we get to the end of another great hour here on Aaron's Opinion, and I always ask every guest this, but if you can ask me only one question to really, really make me sweat, to see if I'm really worth my salt as a podcaster, what question do you want to ask?
Wow. Um, Damn, I don't have a question right now. What can I ask? So do you plan to, expand your podcast as, something full time, or is it something already that is like
It's a great
this?
question. Of course I do. Um, it's very hard to make podcasting a job. For most of society, podcasting it's a hobby. It's an art form for most. Um, there are things that can be done to to actually help the podcast. I can tell you a little bit about that off air. And there is something very special that I want you to actually do if you would like to help Aaron's Opinion. I'll also tell you off air what that is. But I would say yes. I would say yes and no. I would say yes, I would love it if this became my job to be a talk show host and podcaster. But also, too, the beauty of this art form is that it is my hobby. It's something that I do because I feel that society needs it, and I feel that it's a necessity in the ecosystem of podcasts. And that's only my opinion. So that's a really great, really wonderful question. All right. So if someone wants to get in touch with you personally, Ximena, how could they do that? If you want, you can give out any information you want.
Sure. You can contact me on Instagram as AXMQ10. I also have my YouTube channel, which is Ximena Matos. Um, I am also on TikTok as Blind Musician. 4. So yeah, those are like main places where I can get contacted by.
So I just want to take this time and say thank you so much. As I usually like to say in the outro on the audio on the podcast, thank you from the bottom of my heart, Ximena. Thank you for joining me. I wish you the very best of luck. And I just wish everyone around the world all the best of luck and success to you for everything that you are doing. Really. All right, everyone. So click the link in the description for more information. And Ximena Matos, thank you so much for joining us on Aaron's Opinion. Have you have you listened to how I usually end an episode of Aaron's Opinion?
No, not really.
That's fine. Would you like to sing the Bolivian national anthem for us? I always let international guests try to sing their anthem if they want.
I could try.
Okay, but before you do, don't forget, everyone, stay safe out there. Help one person today, help a million people tomorrow. Okay, there you go. Jimena, if you want, take us out of here with the Bolivian national anthem.
Bolivianos helado propicio, coronó nuestros votos y anhelos, estas vidas de suelo, y asesor su servir condición. Hacen verlo marchar allá afuera, al clamor nuestras guerras horrorosos, si el no encontrase armonioso, dulces signos de paz y la unión. A little piece of it, yeah.
All right, perfect way to end. Thanks so much, everybody.